Right, welcome everyone to the Paketo Working Group weekly meeting. We're glad that you're here. Let me see, we have new faces. Seems like not much. The base team here. Thank you for joining. All right, let me share my screen real quick. All right. Oh, great. Right, first things first, outstanding RFCs. So I guess we still don't discuss a stack bomb RFC. It's still blocked, so we will go with the next one. Source renewal build pack. Is there any update or comment around this specific RFC? Yeah.
I think Forest had an outstanding item to change the default behavior in this RFC to basically be if neither one of these environment variables is specified, do nothing. I think that was the changes that need to take place. I don't know if Forest has had time to do those things.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Ryan. I don't see Forest here either. Okay. Right, next up, RFC for secure runtime environment. From Sam, and I believe we were waiting on comments from the author.
I forgot about this comment when I posted it like 2 weeks ago, and then we had working group last week, and I forgot to bring it up then. In the current implementation, we outline that we need to create like a whole separate builder and some other things. I guess my question is like, what minimally do we have to do? And I kind of outline what I think maybe at a minimum we would need to do in order to achieve this, which is really just produce a run image that has a different user ID than the build image we produce. Because then we could actually run tests that use the like -- run image flag off of the pack build command to assert that the behavior we're expecting from the build pack works correctly. If that's the only purpose of these things is really to just test that the build packs behave correctly, then I think that's the minimum set of changes. But I just wanted to check with someone if maybe I'm just like missing something entirely there.
All right, is there any comment? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Next up will be serial config web server builds. Is there any update on this one?
I think this is mostly good. I think we're waiting for anyone from the web service team. I can't remember it. Tim, you're a maintainer for sure. Is there someone else who also is on the maintainers list? I just can't remember off the top of my head.
I think it's just Dan Akuza, and not sure if Arjun still is. He was the might have retired from that team.
I'm gonna just check the maintainers list. And currently the web servers maintainers are you and Arjun. Cool. Well,
let's
either
see.
way, like I'd love to get some feedback from you. You're the maintainer in that space. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, will do.
Thank you. All right, next up, image retention policy. There were some comments during last week, seems like.
Yeah, I don't think this has moved a whole lot since last week, but it's still there if folks want to comment.
Okay.
I think at the
Thank
end
you,
of the
Daniel.
day, I think at the end of the day, the thing I cared about most here was like that we don't talk about GCR at this and all, like the whole thing. And Dan, it seems like you've addressed that, which then to me felt like the only like outstanding concern was like, how many years do we say we're going to retain images for? I don't know that I have a concern in that space.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's where I added to do still that I haven't got to, which is to basically go back and see, like take a couple different intervals and see what that would get us, like how many images would we retain, what sort of space would that clear up, how far back would we go version wise, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other comment on this one? Now, time for the next one. Top Apache Tomcat launch config.
Yeah, there were some new comments on this added in the past hour. I need to have a look at those. I wasn't aware of the environment property source, so that could be a way to go. That's on me to go and have a look at that.
And my understanding of all the Tomcat options is a little bit loosey-goosey just from glancing through the docs. So feel free to look at it and tell me that I'm off base here. But my other question was sort of about when we're copying some of these. There's a part where we're mentioning copying properties into the Catalina properties file. And I think in an earlier version of this RFC, this was explicitly in a tempter. But I feel like now that it's in the Catalina baster, we run the risk of copying secrets onto the root file system, which is not treated with the same sensitivity as a secret volume in a lot of common platforms like Kubernetes. So that would be, for me, that's sort of the blocker for this, where I'd want to ensure that we've set this up so that by default, we're not copying secrets to a less secret location. And then everything else is just different suggestions for how we could approach that I'm not particularly opinionated on.
What is different about the way those volumes are handled, out of curiosity?
They're usually tempfs volumes, so you're not actually writing to disk.
I see. So it's just,
and
it's
then
all in memory.
exists for the duration of the container. Yeah.
Okay.
But the root file system is usually on disk, and then anyone who has access to the disk of the node would have access to those things, where they're sort of like hidden from different personas otherwise.
Okay. So writing, if we did copy, I mean, I suspect the option you found is going to work fine, but just in general, if we did copy something out of a secret, it would be copying it to another temp directory would be okay, because it would essentially have the same characteristics.
Yeah, as long as we're coming to a temp directory, I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Okay.
I think we do that in one place in the CA certificates Buildpack. Well, the CA certificates aren't really secret in the same way in most situations, but just in case we have to copy those, so we can rename the files and we copy them to a temp directory.
Okay.
The other solution I was sort of proposing here, and it's like, I think it's more work, so wouldn't want to go that way if there was an easier way to do it. But because you can set up like you can configure a property source, a custom property source, as long as it's an implementation of the right interface. We could like contribute to implementation of the property source that then just dynamically loads from the binding at runtime without sort of copying to a properties file was another option. That'd be similar to what a lot of the Spring Cloud bindings library does.
I'll take a look at those. Okay, so we've got there's 3 potential ways forward there. That's cool.
Sorry that I just got this review in like 2 seconds before this started.
No, no, it's great to have some feedback on it. It's been really helpful. Thank you. On the chat there, the details of the 3 options probably aren't called out as 3 different things, but I can summarize in a comment later on for people. That's cool.
Yeah, we will appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Right, next up, build with civility. One's from Brian. Any comment around this RFC?
I don't think so. Emily, I wanted to know if all of your concerns were addressed at this point.
Yeah, does this just need a reapprove? I feel like when I first left the comment, it wasn't even so much of the concern. I was just calling out the testing strategy might not have all the same options.
Yeah. I think this is a case where we were being like quite paranoid about what we were producing. And so the tests are asserting like a really, really strong assertion about what actually ends up in the image. And what we're reverting to is like a reasonably okay assertion. I'm like, we should feel free to move to that kind of assertion instead of keeping the like much stronger one that has this kind of negative side effect.
I just submitted an approval because I agree with all of that.
Cool.
And finally, RC for disabling sbands.
There's been quite a lot of conversation back and forth about whether or not we should allow this to happen. I think, Dan, some of your commentary about is there work we could be doing upstream to kind of do things like improve the performance of some of the SBOM generation. I think even if we did this work, we would also want to do performance improvements upstream, if at all possible. So I don't think one thing precludes the other. I think we'd even want to make, SBOM generation as fast as possible for folks who are wanting to use it. The other thing was this last bit, this comment here about having some functionality that allows, say, like an enterprise or organization to override a particular value, configuration value for all builds. To me, this sounds like a platform level thing, and I'm not really sure what the API would look like for like a build pack to enable such a platform-wide feature, since build packs don't really have a concept of like a platform or any sort of real understanding of what that might mean.
I can definitely imagine platforms wanting to do this. And I think from the build pack perspective, it doesn't matter. It's like the build pack gets these environment variables. Often they're provided by the platform on behalf of the user, but they could be provided by the platform on behalf of itself. And I don't think it should matter to the build pack.
Yeah, I think my concern is just around adoption. If operators and at large companies don't feel like they can control this, then that could impact their adoption of Buildpacks. That's definitely something I've seen happen before. Being able to force certain settings onto their developers is important. I'm a little reluctant to punt and just say let the platforms do it, since the platforms aren't doing it now. Kind of puts us in a spot where there isn't a solution for someone like that, which again could impact adoption. But yeah, I mean, I certainly get what the concern is. You know, having a extra few seconds on your development time for SBOM generation is not pleasant in the slightest. I think my other concern with this is just the language around requiring Buildpacks to adopt this versus making it optional. I'm totally fine with defining the interface that one would use to do this, but I feel like it should be up to the Buildpacks whether they, in the language families, whether they actually allow skipping or not. And I know there's a concern of making it possibly a little confusing, but I would also be totally fine if you opt out, you know, having a requirement to say that, you know, in the build output or something like that. Or making it an error if the build pack doesn't support that.
Making it an error would be a problem considering it's the same flag for all build packs. You could have a situation, say, for example, where you already include Node Engine as part of the Java build pack. So then like Node Engine might choose to adopt this flag. And the expectation there might be, yes, this flag will work on the Node Engine build pack, but then Java throws an error.
Yeah.
Which is not really what you would want.
I wonder if I think Node Engine is an interesting case, right? Like if you're adding Node, if you're defining what version of Node you're installing in your build materials. As a build pack, in a lot of cases, you know, you're looking in your metadata to figure out where this version of Node came from and installing it. So then you could generate the SBOM and you already have all that data. So it's not really taking you any time to generate the SBOM, right? It's just about copying that data. And I think it raises a question about what people want if they turned it off. Like, would we want to turn off all SBOM, even the kind that are instantaneous? Or is it just the fast and dirty option? Like, I don't care, don't waste any time on it. Like, would it be like right now, you know, if we wanted to, when we approve the run image bomb RFC, like bake the run image bomb in there, if someone turns this off and then they still get a bill of materials, but it's just the run image, would that be surprising? You know, stuff like that. I'm not sure which side I'm coming down on, but I'm just like to Dan's point, like maybe the other way to approach this would be in particular cases where it's very slow, have a particular flag to be like, turn off this slow piece.
Yeah, disable SBOM if slow.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, I don't know if that's as elegant though from an interface perspective.
SBOM light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think like if there is a decision like that to disable specific parts of it, we should try to find a way to make it clear that like some of that fidelity was dropped in favor of speed. Maybe with a label or something like that.
Couple things. Speaking from my experience, like dealing with the .NET SDK and CLI and its documentation, something like an environment variable that turns off the software build materials, but then like only sometimes with caveats is like the sort of thing that I've encountered a few times in the documentation for that CLI. And like there are a lot of features in that tool that are extremely hard to understand and access because there are so many caveats with like how they work or what they mean. Off of with some recency bias off of like using that in the past few days, I would certainly advocate for a simpler interface, like something that just simply like does turn off the SBOM. And if it's a concern, for example, that this like weakens the Buildpacks sort of like compliance story, I guess, from an operator's perspective, then I think it'd be cool if we at least like filed an issue with KPAC to express this as I think one example of a broader thing. Like we can request features from KPAC. I think kind of makes sense for us to do that. And kind of do other things to like remediate this problem rather than make the actual like implementation complicated.
How fast would it have to be in order for us not to want to do it? I guess that's my question. Like how fast would we not be, how fast would it have to be for us not to be asking this question? And then like, how far off are we from being able to get ourselves to that point?
I think like for stuff like the Go build pack, their SBOMs are generating in like, around the one-ish second kind of benchmark. But Node is in the like 30 to 60 second territory, which is significantly
long time.
more. Yeah. This is kind of amplified by a recent set of changes we've made to that. Specifically, the things we're talking about are the npm install and the yarn install build packs, those that install like huge numbers of node modules. Those are tend to be the ones that are really, really slow. This is definitely impacted by recent changes to both those build packs that were meant to support other features in the node ecosystem that result in basically 2 SBOMs being generated for every one build process. They're like different SBOMs because one of them covers development dependencies and the other one covers production level dependencies. But imagining that there's like a 90% overlap in those things, you're gonna end up, instead of 30 seconds, it's 60 seconds and so on and so forth. Is, you're just adding more stuff. Your SBOM generation time balloons pretty significantly there.
Right, any other comment? Okay, yeah, thank you for keeping the discussion going. Async also in the comments. That's great to see. All right, seems like those are all the RFCs. So next up, we will have libc and bb2 updates, questions. Is there any update?
We did have a bot team meeting on Friday. I think we had decent attendance there. I'm trying to remember. I don't know that there was anything specifically covered for Paketo. There has been some work on the V2 API, a couple of things that got merged in. And there is a pending there's a pending PR for a potential change to logging as well. So that would be good for folks to take a look at and provide some feedback on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about to ask the same thing. You have a link to that PR? Can you? Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, next up, project update. Well, I had a couple. First up, as we discussed last week, this is a first attempt to having a mailing list. And I say attempt because, well, Google Groups is the tool that all the open source projects on VMware actually use to have a mailing distribution list and also a public calendar. But for Paketo Buildpacks specifically, I still need to check with someone at the Cloud Foundry Foundation if this is fine, or if they have a different tool or approach for mailing list. But yeah, the goal is using whatever tool to have a mailing list soon, so we can start distributing information like this one, requesting feedback, sharing news, etc. So all right. Okay. I'm sorry. Daniel, is that we are to go on the?
Sorry, those were just for notes.
Okay. Cool. No problem. Right. So yeah, this is the first attempt. I just sent an invite to most of you, but I still need to check with you, see if that's how to do it. Also in terms of events, all things open, CFP is open. This is a really cool event where we could plan to have a hands-on session. I mean, one of the things I like the most on all things open is the actual hands-on or yeah, workshops, hackathons, whatever you may call it. So the CFP closes on about a month. So yeah, what has been useful for some other projects recently in terms of content creation is to have a baseline of text already prepared for events or for workshops, and to be able to distribute that to different events, leveraging the developer advocates team. Because yeah, the goal is not to ask you, the maintainers team, to attend or to present at every event out there, but to leverage the team that they actually that's their duty. Their job is to actually present at events, developer advocates. So and also again, I still have pending a conversation with the developer advocate at the Cloud Foundry Foundation to see how can we join forces to lay out a content generation plan. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that this really cool event has a CFP open. Any comments, observations, or additional updates? Nope. All right, folks. Well, thank you for your time and see you next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.